This is a Fonzie Studio podcast. Welcome to Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and every week I'll share with you a tale and ancient wisdom of the native tribes of North America. I'll be joined by my cats, Dawa and Fonzie, who will undoubtedly make their presence known at some point, so I might as well just list them as co-hosts. We hope you'll enjoy the tales and wisdom, raise your vibration, and enrich your life with us every week. Welcome, friends. Welcome to the 57th episode of Tales from the First Nations. I'm your host, Jay Idle. I am very excited to welcome you to a new year. I hope that 2026 will bring many blessings to you and your family. A new year offers an opportunity for new beginnings and hope. We can, like snakes, shed away that which no longer serves us so we can move on into the new year with the intention of reaching our potential without the limits of things that we see and hear around us. It was in this spirit of hope for the future that I wanted to share an Iroquois story with you at the start of the year in the hopes that we can find strength and unity of those who seek a common goal of inner and outer peace. So this is the story of Hiawatha the Unifier. Hiawatha means he who makes rivers. Hiawatha is thought to have been a statesman, lawgiver, shaman, and unifier who lived around 1570. Now, according to some sources, he was born a Mohawk and sought refuge among the Onondaga when his own tribe at first rejected his teachings. His efforts to unite the Iroquois tribes were opposed by a formidable chieftain, Watha Totoro, whom he eventually defeated and who killed Hiawatha's daughter in revenge. So, the slumber of Taren-Yawongan, the upholder of heavens, was disturbed by a great cry of anguish and woe. He looked down from his abode on earth and saw human beings moaning with terror, pursued by horrifying monsters and cruel man-devouring giants. Turning himself into a mortal, Taren-Yawongan swiftly descended to earth and, taking a small girl by the hand, told the frightened humans to follow him. By trails known only to him, he led the group of shivering refugees to a cave at the mouth of a great river, where he fed them and told them to sleep. After the people had somewhat recovered under his protection, Taren-Yawongan again took the little girl by the hand and led them towards the rising sun. The band traveled for many days until they came to the confluence of two mighty rivers whose waters, white with spray, cascaded over tremendous rocks. There, Taren-Yawongan halted and built a long house for himself and his people. For years they lived there, content and growing fat, their children turning into strong men and handsome women. Then Taren-Yawongan, the sky upholder, became mortal, gathered the people around him and spoke. "You, my children, must now spread out and become great nations. I will make your numbers like the leaves of a forest in the summertime, like pebbles on the shore of the great waters." And again he took one little girl by the hand and walked towards the setting sun, all the people following him. After a long journey, they came to the banks of a beautiful river. Taren-Yawongan separated a few families from the rest and told them to build a longhouse on that spot and found a village. "You shall be known by the name of Tihawoga, those of divided speech." He told them this, and they grew into the Mohawk tribe. And from that moment, he had named them. Their language changed, and they could no longer understand the rest of the people. To the Mohawks, Taren-Yawongan gave corn, beans, squash, and tobacco, together with dogs to help them hunt game. He taught them how to plant and reap and pound corn into meal. He taught them the ways of the forest and the game, for in that long time ago, people did not yet know all of these things. When he had fully instructed them and had given them the necessities of life, Ta-Ren Yawogon took one little girl by the hand and traveled with the remaining people towards the sunset. After a long journey, they halted in a beautiful, well-watered valley surrounded by forests, and he commanded another group to build their village in that spot. He gave them what was necessary for life, taught them what they needed to know, and named them Niha Retago, the big tree people, for the great forest surrounded them. And these people grew into the Oneida nation. They also spoke a tongue of their own as soon as he had named them. Then, once more, Ta-Ren Yawogon took a little girl's hand and wandered on, always towards the setting sun, and the rest of the people followed him. They came to a big mountain which he named Onondago Onanga. At its feet, he commanded some more families to build a longhouse, and he gave them the same gifts and taught them the same things that he had the others. He named them after the mountain towering above them, and also gave them a speech of their own, and these people became the Onondaga nation. Again, with a small girl at his side, Ta-Ren Yawogon wandered on, leading the people to the shores of a lake sparkling in the sun. The lake was called Goyoga, and here still another group built their village, and they became the Cayugas. Now only a handful of people were left, and these Ta-Ren Yawogon led to a lake by a mountain called Ganondagoa, and there he settled them, giving them the name Tiho Ninoihent, keepers of the door. They too received a language of their own and grew into the mighty Seneca nation. There were some among the people who were not satisfied with the places appointed to them by the upholder of heavens. These wandered on towards the setting sun until they came to a river greater than all others, a river known as the Mississippi. They crossed it on a wild grapevine that formed a bridge from bank to bank, and after the last of them had crossed over, the vine tore asunder. None could ever return, so this river divided the western from the eastern human beings. To each nation, the upholder of heavens gave a special gift. To the Senecas, he gave such swift feet that their hunters could outrun the deer. To the Cayugas, he gave the canoe and the skill to guide it through the most turbulent waters. To the Onondagas, he gave the knowledge of eternal laws and the gift to fathom the wishes of the great Creator. To the Oneidas, he gave skills in making weapons and weaving baskets, while to the Mohawks, he gave bows and arrows and the ability to guide the shafts into the hearts of their game and their enemies. Ta-Ren Yawogon resolved to live among the people as a human being. Having the power to assume any shape, he chose to be a man and took the name of Hiawatha. He chose to live among the Onondagas and took a beautiful young woman from that tribe to be his wife. From their union came a daughter, Minnehaha, who surpassed even her mother in beauty and womanly skills. Hiawatha never ceased to teach and advise, and above all, he preached peace and harmony. Under Hiawatha, the Onondagas became the greatest of all tribes, but the other nations founded by the great upholder also increased and prospered, traveling in a magic birch bark canoe of dazzling whiteness, which floated above the waters and meadows as if an invisible bird's wings. Hiawatha went from nation to nation, counseling them and keeping man, animal, and nature in balance, according to the eternal laws of the Manitos. So all was well, and people lived happily. But the law of the universe is also that happiness alternates with sorrow, life with death, prosperity with hardship, harmony with disharmony. From out of the north, beyond the Great Lakes, came wild tribes, fierce, untutored nations who knew nothing of the eternal law. People who did not plant or weave baskets or fire clay into cooking vessels. All they knew was how to prey on those who planted and reaped the fruits of their labor. Fierce and pitiless, these strangers ate their meat raw, tearing it apart with their teeth. Warfare and killing were the occupation. They burst upon Hiawatha's people like a flood, spreading devastation everywhere they went. Again, the people turned to Hiawatha for help. He advised all the nations to assemble and await his coming. And so the 5 tribes came together at the place of the great council fire, by the shores of a large and tranquil lake, where the wild men from the north had not yet penetrated. The people waited for Hiawatha 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. On the 4th day, his gleaming white canoe appeared, floating, gliding above the mists. Hiawatha sat in the stern, guiding the mystery canoe, which, in the bow, was his only child, his daughter. The sachems, elders, and wise men of the tribes stood at the water's edge to greet the great upholder. Hiawatha and his daughter stepped ashore. He greeted all he met as brothers and spoke to each in their own language. Suddenly, there came an awesome noise, a noise like the rushing of 100 rivers, like the beating of 1,000 giant wings. Fearfully, the people looked upward. Out of the clouds, circling lower and lower, flew the great mystery bird of the heavens, 100 times as big a bird as the largest eagles. And whenever he beat his wings, he made the sound of 1,000 thunderclaps. While the people cowered, Hiawatha and daughter stood unmoved. Then the great upholder laid his hands upon his daughter's head in blessing, after which she said calmly, "Farewell, my father." She seated herself between the wings of the mystery bird, who spiraled upward and upward into the clouds, and at last disappeared into the great vault of the sky. The people watched in awe, but Hiawatha, stunned with grief, sank to the ground and covered himself with the robe of a panther. 3 days he sat thus, in silence, and none dared approach him. The people wondered whether he had given his only child to the Manitos above as a sacrifice for the deliverance of his people. But the great upholder would never tell them, would never speak of his daughter or of the mystery bird who had carried her away. After having mourned for 3 days, Hiawatha rose on the morning of the 4th and purified himself in the cold, clear waters of the lake. Then he asked the great council to assemble. When the sachems, elders, and wise men had seated themselves in a circle around the sacred fire, Hiawatha came before them and said, "What is past is past. It is the present and the future which concerns us. My children, listen well, for these are my last words to you. My time among you is drawing to an end. My children, war, fear, and disunity have brought you from your villages to this sacred council fire. Facing a common danger and fearing for the lives of your family, you have yet drifted apart, each tribe thinking and acting only for itself. Remember how I took you from one small band and nursed you up into many nations. You must reunite now and act as one. No tribe alone can withstand our savage enemies, who care nothing about the eternal law, who sweep upon us like the storms of winter, spreading death and the destruction everywhere. My children, listen well. Remember that you are brothers, that the downfall of one means the downfall of all. You must have one fire, one pipe, one war club." Hiawatha motioned to the 5 tribal firekeepers to unite their fires with one big sacred council fire, and they did so. Then the great upholder sprinkled sacred tobacco upon the glowing embers, so that its sweet fragrance enveloped the wise men sitting in the circle. He said, "Onondagas, you are a tribe of mighty warriors. Your strength is like that of a giant pine tree, whose roots spread far and deep so that it can withstand any storm. Be you the protectors. You shall be the first nation. Oneida, your men are famous for their wisdom. Be you the counselors of the tribes. You shall be the second nation. Seneca, you are swift of foot and persuasive in speech. Your men are the greatest orators among the tribes. Be you the spokesman. You shall be the third people. Cayuga, you are the most cunning. You are the most skilled in the building and managing of canoes. Be you the guardians of our rivers. You shall be the fourth nation. Mohawk, you are foremost in planting corn and beans and in building longhouses. Be you the nourishers. You tribes must be like the 5 fingers of a warrior's hand, joined in gripping the war club. Unite as one, and then your enemies will recoil before you into the northern wastes from whence they came. Let my words sink deep into your hearts and minds. Retire now to take counsel among yourselves, and come to me tomorrow to tell me whether you will follow my advice. On the next morning, the wise men of the 5 nations came to Hiawatha with the promise that they would, from that day on, be as one nation. Hiawatha rejoiced. He gathered up the dazzling white feathers which the great mystery bird of the sky had dropped, and gave the plumes to the leaders of the assembled tribes. By these feathers, he said, you shall be known as the Okono-Shuni, the Iroquois. Thus, with the help of Hiawatha, the great unifier, the mighty league of the 5 nations was born, and its tribe held sway, undisturbed over all the land between the great river of the west and the great sea of the east. The elders begged Hiawatha to become the chief of the united tribes, but he told them, this can never be, because I must leave you. Friends and brothers, choose the wisest women in your tribes to be the future clan mothers and peacemakers. Let them turn any strife arising among you into friendship. Let your sachems be wise enough to go to such women for advice when there are disputes. Now I have finished speaking. Farewell. The finishing part of this legend was lost and destroyed in an accident, but was only a sentence or 2 more, literally. However, it is said by many that Hiawatha died and was buried on the shores of that lake. May Hiawatha's message of unity spread through us all in this new year, so that we may be blessed and prosper together. It is with respect and gratitude that I offer you my blessing and my thanks for sharing your journey with me and sharing your time with me on the podcast. I wish you well and look forward to sharing another story with you next week. Go in peace, return in peace, and may you be well. If you enjoy the podcast, please like and review us on your podcast service so we can expand our family. Our story today, Hiawatha the Unifier, comes from the now-defunct PyramidMesa.com. I give gratitude that Internet Access Wayback Machine has protected a majority of their content. For more great stories and legends, join me next week for another story here on Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and I'll talk to you next time. The beautiful song you're listening to right now is provided by my dear friend Scott Brocklesby, and our podcast image of the moon was provided by Mark Lawton. We'll see you next time. All right, that's it. How'd we do, Dawa?
Awesome.
Phones? Excellent. Then I'll share it.